humanity has always looked up. For centuries, we have pointed our most advanced telescopes toward the infinite darkness of the cosmos, desperately searching for a single whisper, a single anomalous signal that would prove we are not alone. We spent billions of dollars launching metal eyes into orbit, charting distant galaxies, and listening to the cold void of space. But in our arrogant obsession with the stars, we committed a fatal error of misdirection. We forgot to look down. We ignored the alien world that covers over 70% of our own planet, the deep ocean, an abyss of crushing pressure and eternal night, where the laws of surface physics begin to warp and break. We know more about the craters on the dark side of the moon than we do about the midnight zones of our own oceans. And perhaps that ignorance was intentional. Perhaps we were never meant to find what was waiting for us in the darkest trench on Earth, the Mariana Trench, a terrifying scar in the Earth's crust, plunging nearly 11 kilometers into the planetary mantle. At this catastrophic depth, the hydrostatic pressure reaches over 1,000 times the standard atmospheric pressure at sea level. It is an environment so utterly hostile that it would effortlessly crush a solid block of aerospace-grade titanium as if it were a fragile piece of aluminum foil. Sunlight has never penetrated this deep. It is a realm of sensory deprivation, freezing temperatures, and nightmarish biological adaptations. For decades, marine biologists believed the bottom of the Challenger Deep was nothing more than a barren wasteland of fine siliceous ooze and crushing silence, until one very specific expedition shattered that illusion forever. It began as a routine deep-sea geological survey. A state-of-the-art remotely operated vehicle, an ROV equipped with hyperspectral imaging and ground-penetrating sonar, was slowly descending through the abyssal and Haddle zones. The video feed transmitted back to the surface research vessel showed the usual mesmerizing dance of bioluminescent deep-sea jellies and the silent snowfall of marine detritus. Hour after hour of methodical, monotonous scanning. But then, at exactly 10,920 meters below the surface, the ROV's sophisticated sonar array registered an anomaly. It was not a biological return. It was not a geological formation. The acoustic signature was entirely wrong for the surrounding environment. It was returning a signal of absolute, unnatural geometric perfection. The surface team, initially assuming a sensor glitch, directed the ROV's high-intensity tungsten halogen floodlights toward the target coordinates. The beam of light pierced the ancient darkness, cutting through the swirling sediment, and illuminated something that made the entire control room fall into a deathly, breathless silence. Resting half-buried in the primordial mud, completely untouched by the extreme conditions around it, was a sphere. The ROV's robotic manipulator arm, built to withstand incredible stress, delicately extracted the object from the trench floor. It was heavy, denser than it should have been. When the payload finally breached the surface and was secured within the sterilized containment bay of the research vessel, the scientists were confronted with a physical impossibility. The object was composed of obsidian, volcanic glass. To understand why this terrified the geologists on board, you must understand the nature of obsidian. It is an extrusive igneous rock formed from the rapid cooling of silica-rich lava. By its very molecular definition, volcanic glass is brittle, fragile, and highly susceptible to physical fracturing and chemical weathering. Yet, the object sitting before them was a mathematically flawless sphere. Its surface was a continuous, unbroken curve of pitch-black glass, polished to a mirror finish that seemed to swallow the ambient light of the laboratory. There were no microfractures. There was no chemical degradation from the highly corrosive saltwater. And most impossibly, it had survived an environment of 16,000 pounds per square inch of pressure. Under those conditions, a hollow glass sphere would implode instantly, and a solid glass sphere would develop deep structural stress fractures. This object defied the foundational principles of material science simply by existing. It was as if the sphere was projecting an invisible structural integrity field. But the true horror, the discovery that would ultimately terminate the careers of everyone in that room, was yet to come. The initial analysis yielded nothing but frustration. High-energy X-ray diffraction could not penetrate the opaque black shell. Isotopic dating techniques returned chaotic contradictory numbers, suggesting the material was simultaneously ancient and newly forged. It was a closed box, an impenetrable enigma. The breakthrough happened entirely by accident, as many paradigm-shifting discoveries do. A junior researcher attempting to sterilize the containment area engaged a high-intensity ultraviolet C germicidal lamp. As the invisible ultraviolet waves washed over the black sphere, the ambient temperature in the room inexplicably dropped, and then the stone woke up. The opaque black surface did not become transparent, but rather it began to transmit light from within. Deep inside the solid core of the obsidian, thousands of microscopic crystalline structures suddenly ignited with an ethereal, pulsing blue luminescence. The scientists gasped, scrambling to turn off the overhead lights. In the darkened laboratory, the sphere hung in the containment cradle, radiating a mesmerizing, complex three-dimensional hologram. It was not random light scattering. The glowing microcrystals were arranged with absolute, agonizing precision. The lead astronomer on the expedition stared at the internal projection, his mind struggling to process the impossible geometry. He rushed to the navigation console, frantically pulling up the latest deep space astrometric catalogs compiled by the European Space Agency. He overlaid the orbital telemetry onto the holographic projection inside the stone. It was a perfect one-to-one match. The sphere was not just a rock, it was a map. A flawlessly rendered, three-dimensional stellar cartography of the Cygnus constellation. But it was not Cygnus as we see it from Earth today. It was the constellation complete with precise spatial coordinates of exoplanets, including orbital trajectories and atmospheric composition markers, data that human science had only begun to theorize, let alone prove. The glowing points of light inside the volcanic glass mapped out a localized region of the Milky Way galaxy with a zero margin of error. The discovery was so profound, so violently disruptive to the established timeline of human evolution and technological progress, that the immediate reaction was not scientific triumph, but sheer, unadulterated panic. The moment the encrypted data packets containing the spectral analysis and the holographic Cygnus projection were transmitted to the Surface Command Center and relayed via satellite to the Mainland Research Institute, an invisible crushing hand clamped down on the expedition. The communication arrays on the research vessel were abruptly jammed by a military-grade signal override. Within hours, unmarked naval fast response vessels intercepted the civilian research ship in international waters. Armed personnel, stripped of any identifying insignia, boarded the vessel and systematically confiscated every hard drive, every physical notebook, and the containment cradle holding the obsidian sphere. The scientists, men and women who had dedicated their entire lives to the pursuit of empirical truth, were subjected to aggressive, extrajudicial interrogations. They were forced to sign non-disclosure agreements so draconian that even whispering about the deep-sea coordinates would result in federal treason charges. Their deep submersible piloting licenses were permanently revoked. The expedition was erased from the official maritime logs, written off as a sudden mechanical failure that forced an early return to port. And what of the sphere? Several months later, a heavily redacted, incredibly brief paper was buried in the back pages of a minor geological journal. It described the recovery of a natural geological anomaly, a piece of deep-sea tektite shaped by unusual hydrothermal vent currents. It was a pathetic, transparent lie, a lie designed to pacify the uninformed public and bury the truth under a mountain of bureaucratic silence. But this crude cover-up only amplified the terrifying implications. If the object was truly just an interestingly shaped rock sculpted by hot water, why deploy black ops units to secure it? Why threaten the lives of internationally respected oceanographers? The answer lies in the terrifying reality of what the sphere actually represents. It represents the absolute, undeniable impotence of modern human science. Let us break down the physical impossibility of the object's creation. to engrave a highly detailed three-dimensional map inside a solid, unbroken sphere of volcanic glass without leaving a single microscopic point of entry or exit on the surface, is a feat that entirely bypasses our current understanding of manufacturing. Human technology relies on subtraction or addition. We carve things out or we build things up layer by layer. To create the Cygnus map within the Mariana sphere, an intelligent designer would have needed to manipulate the fundamental atomic structure of the obsidian from the outside in without disturbing the outer shell. They would have needed a subatomic particle beam, a technology capable of precisely altering the phase state of individual silica molecules deep within the rock, forcing them into a crystalline matrix that emits light when exposed to specific electromagnetic frequencies. This is not just advanced technology. This is godlike manipulation of matter. We are talking about a civilization that looks at solid stone, the same way our computers look at a blank digital canvas. The specific coordinates highlighted within the glowing matrix of the sphere pointed directly to the Kepler 186 system, a region located roughly 500 light-years from Earth. What makes this detail so staggering is that modern astronomers only confirmed the existence of Kepler 186f, an Earth-sized exoplanet orbiting within the habitable zone of its red dwarf star, in the year 2014. Yet, the deep-sea artifact depicted this exact planet, with a distinct pulsating blue aura, an unmistakable universal signifier for the presence of liquid water. How could a supposedly natural formation of volcanic glass from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean possess detailed knowledge of a habitable exoplanet 5 centuries of light travel away? The statistical probability of this being a random geological coincidence is functionally zero. It is mathematical proof of ancient contact or advanced prehistoric astronomy that shatters the Darwinian timeline of human progression. We are forced to ask ourselves what other artifacts are currently resting in the pitch-black valleys of the ocean floor. If one sphere was recovered by pure chance during a routine survey, how many thousands of others might be scattered across the abyssal plains, waiting to be illuminated? And this forces us to confront the most chilling question of all. Who put it there? And why? The Mariana Trench is not a static environment. The Pacific tectonic plate is constantly subducting under the Mariana Plate. Anything sitting on the bottom of that trench is slowly being dragged down into the fiery mantle of the Earth to be melted and recycled. For the sphere to be resting on the surface of the sediment, it could not have been there for millions of years. It was placed there relatively recently in geological terms, perhaps 12,000 years ago, during the Younger Dryas impact event, when catastrophic global flooding wiped out advanced prehistoric civilizations. Was the sphere a desperate time capsule dropped into the deepest abyss by a highly advanced terrestrial species before the oceans swallowed their cities? A navigational buoy meant to survive the apocalypse, or is the truth even more alien? Is it a deep space beacon, launched across the interstellar void by the architects of the Cygnus system, designed to sink to the deepest, safest point of a water world and wait for an intelligent species to evolve the technology to retrieve it and turn on the light? We may never know the exact truth, because the sphere is hidden by men who are too terrified to admit that humanity is not the apex of intelligence in the universe. We strut around the surface of this planet with our smartphones and our particle accelerators, blindly believing we are the masters of physics. We proudly launch the James Webb Space Telescope, a $10 billion marvel of engineering, to peer into the edges of the galaxy. But the ultimate joke is on us. We spend our wealth and our genius looking up, completely unaware that a civilization far older and vastly more powerful than ours had already mapped those very same stars, encoded the data into a piece of black glass, and dropped it into the darkest depths of our own ocean. The universe is not a quiet, empty place waiting for us to discover it. It is an ancient, crowded arena filled with technological ghosts and buried secrets. We are just the children playing in the shallow end of the cosmic pool, entirely ignorant of the leviathans swimming in the dark. The Mariana sphere is proof that they were here. And if they could manipulate matter at the atomic level 12,000 years ago, what could they do today? The truth is out there, buried beneath miles of crushing water, and layers of government classification. Do not let them silence the questions. If you want to keep exploring the suppressed discoveries and the hidden history of our universe, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think the obsidian sphere really was? An ancient terrestrial warning or an alien invitation? Until next time, keep your eyes open and never stop questioning reality.